everyone and welcome to episode 24 of our Raspberry Pi series, and in today's episode we're going to be installing Tautulli on our Raspberry Pi. Tautulli is a third-party application that runs alongside your Plex server that is used to monitor the statistics and to give you more information about what your Plex media server is doing. Now there is alternative apps that you can get. There is Plex Amp, but these are premium services that you have to pay for, and I think Tautulli actually gives you a little bit more information and a little bit more fine-tuning with the notifications, etc., than what you'd get with Plex Amp. So, and not just that, it's free as well, as free as in free beer. It's a open source project that is maintained through Docker Hub. So what makes Tautulli so good is that you can track what's being watched on your Plex server. So if you share your media with any third parties, then you can actually see what they're watching, how they're watching it, where they're watching it from. It gives you a lot of useful information. It also helps if you had some content on your Plex server that isn't being watched. It's just sitting there taking up storage space. You can see that that's not being watched, no one's interested in it. You can clear it off and save some space and replace it with some other content that people might be interested in. Another thing you can do with Tautulli that's great is notifications. So you can have your notifications going to a different agent. So you can have the notifications going to somewhere like Discord, for instance. So you can be notified of when someone plays something, stops something. It's endless, the notifications. I mean, some of this can be tedious. It can be a bit spammy, so you got to be sparing with what notifications you enable. So we do have a custom setup on our Raspberry Pi. If you guys have followed our series, you should have something similar to what we have. If you guys haven't, I would recommend that you have Plex Media installed, that you have Portainer at the very least with Docker, ready to use a stack that we're going to use today to install that. So we're also going to need to access some logs that's in the Plex Media server folder, and we're going to map that within our stack. If you guys would like to support us, please consider hitting that subscribe button as well as the like button, just to let the YouTube algorithms know that we are releasing content that you guys are interested in. So without further ado, we're going to get straight on today and we're going to install Tautulli on our Raspberry Pi. So first thing, we're just going to take a look at the stack that I've created for your use today. So if you guys want to copy and paste this stack today, you can find it in the resources section below, which will have a link to our dedicated blog post for today's episode. And you can find all the commands that we run today on that blog post too. So what we're going to need to start is we're going to need two folders created, one for the config file and one to link to our Plex installation that's going to have the Plex logs. We'll need the logs so that it can give us a bit more information in Tautulli. So to start off with, we're going to need to SSH into our Raspberry Pi. So you're going to need to open up a terminal, and if you guys are on Windows, you can use PuTTY. So the command we're going to run is SSH TACP for the port number. Our custom port is 1984. Our username, and then the IP address, the local IP address of your Raspberry Pi. Press enter and then enter your password. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to navigate into our app data folder. So we're going to cd/srv dev and then our drive. Now if we ls out, you can see we have a folder called Docker apps. So we're going to go into that. Yours could be called app data if you followed our Raspberry Pi series. We're going to ls out the contents of there. Now you can see I've got a few containers in here. So the one that we're really interested in here is the Plex folder. That is where my Plex media server is installed. So we're going to create the config folder first. So we're going to create a folder called Tautulli. And we're going to go into that folder. And then we're going to create another folder called config. And then we're going to cd into that folder. And then to get the absolute path of that directory, we need to do pwd, which is print working directory. And that will give us the absolute path that we can copy and paste. And we're going to copy that into where it says config. So just before the colon here, we're going to paste that in. So now we just need to access the Plex logs. This is so we can add it later on in Tautulli so that it can access them logs, so it can give you a bit more data about what is going on your server. So we're going to go back into our terminal and we're going to come up one level and then one more, and then we're going to ls the contents and I'm going to clear this out. Now you can see that we have the Plex folder there just here. So we're going to go into that folder now. Now if we ls the contents in there, you can see there's a config folder. We're going to go into the config folder and then into the library folder. And then into the application support, and then into the Plex Media Center. I'm just going to clear this out now, and ls again. So we need this folder here that says log. So we're going to go into that folder there. And just clear this out again so it's clear. And then we're going to do ls again. Then we're going to ls again. And there's our logs that we're going to need to access in Tautulli. So what we're going to do is we're going to do pwd again. And this will give you the full path. I'm just going to clear this out so you can see it better. So this is our full absolute path that we can use. So we're going to copy and paste this now into this second line before the colon, because this means it's external to our Docker container. So what we're going to do is now, it says port 8181. I'm just going to check to make sure that none of our containers that we've installed so far are using port 8181, because we don't want to conflict with it. Now we can see that our Nextcloud is on port 8181. So we're going to change that. So if you guys haven't got Nextcloud installed from following our tutorials, then you can just leave this as it is. So we're going to use port 8182, and the internal port will be 8181. Okay, so what you guys are going to need now is you're going to need to know what your PUID and your PGID is. So you can find this out by doing ID. Now, I use user 1 for our Docker. As you can see here, it's part of the Docker groups. So you guys need to find out what your user is that is part of your Docker group. So mine is fine. So I can use the 1001 for the UID and 100 for the GID. So I have the correct field so far. Now you guys need to know what your time zone is. You can find that within your Open Media Vault interface. It's in there in time. Obviously you should know that. It'll have the correct syntax that you use. Mine is Europe/London. So now that we have that completed, we're going to copy this into memory. And we're going to minimize this file there, and we're going to go back into our Portainer, and we're going to go to stacks, and we're going to go to add stack, and then we're going to call this Tautulli, and then we're going to paste the contents here. So all that leaves you to do now is to come down to the bottom and click deploy this stack. So this may take a little while to complete. It's pulling down the image from Docker Hub, and it's going to create them folder mounts for you. So now that's finished, we are going to come back into containers. And if you look down the list here, you should find Tautulli here. And we can click on the log file to make sure everything's okay. So it says it's done, and it's starting the services. Everything looks great. So we're going to go back to our containers. And under Tautulli here, come across, we can see that it is on port 8182. So we're going to go to port 8182, so 192. So that's our Raspberry Pi IP address, and we're going to go to 8182. And here is our Tautulli interface. So here you'll find the wizard that you need to run through to make sure that everything is configured and set up correctly. So we're going to run through this wizard now. We're going to click on next. And we're going to have to give it a username and password. I'm going to call mine admin and give it a password. And we're going to have a Plex account. So we need to sign in with your Plex account. So if you click sign in with Plex. And then click sign in. And then it says authentication was successful. Then click next. Now Plex Media Server. Select your Plex Media Server from the drop down menu or enter an IP address or host name. So under here we're going to scroll down to where it says 192.168, and we're going to click on that to add that. So because we're accessing this internally on our LAN, we don't need to click on remote server, and we don't need to use a secure connection because it's all internal on our network. We're not accessing this remotely in any way, so we can click on verify. It says server found. Now we're going to click next. Activity login. So leave that at 120 seconds. That's fine. So next. Notifications. Tautulli can send a wide variety of notifications to alert you of activity on your Plex server. So that's fine. Just click finished on this. And this is just going to complete this setup. Okay, so now we're going to click on sign in and make sure remember me is ticked. Click sign in again. And there you go. We are now logged in. Now currently the log file from our Plex server we haven't connected, so we're going to do that now. So we're going to click on here and go down to settings. And then under Plex Media Server, we're going to click on show advanced. And then under where it says Plex folder log, we're going to click browse. And we're going to click on logs and then select. And that's all you've got to do, and then click save at the bottom. So now we've linked our Plex media logs. So this will now show all the statistics that we need to see from the log files. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a little look through the interface here. So as you can see, it has activity here. So this will show up anything that's currently being played. Our watch statistics will show, like, over a period of time, it will build up them statistics and then it will let you know. So you can see in here the libraries, you can see what you've got, you can see the total number of seasons, you can see how many films that you have, you can see a lot of good information here. You can also come to users, and if you had some users in here, it'd show you what they've been watching, how long they've been watching it. And in here it will show you their IP address, so you can track to see whether they're using multiple devices. So if you're sharing it with a family member and they have shared their details with someone else, then this could soon, they can send it, they can share it with someone else, and then soon you can have a lot of people feeding off your server. This will help you establish if there's multiple IPs coming from there, so then you can deal with it accordingly. So moving on from there, we've got the history. This will show you everything that's being played or looked at. It gives you a good graph. I mean, I haven't got anything yet because this is obviously a server that I don't use. I've just added this for educational purposes for you guys to see how it all comes together. But in here, after a while, leave it after maybe a couple of weeks, you should have a good bit of data in here that you can play with, and then you can tweak your server accordingly. From here, you can see the synced items. So synced items are when people download content from your server. You can see who's downloading and who's got them stored on what device and where. And obviously you can limit that if you need to. So going into the settings, we can look at the notifications area, which is another good thing to look at. So notification agents, you can add an agent from multiple different places. So you can have a Discord server set up where you can have your notifications going in there, so you can see it in real time on your phone and other places. You can have it sent via email. You can have it sent to your Facebook, and these are multiple places to send this data. Even Telegram's quite good. And you've also got an option here for the Tautulli remote Android app. So there's actually an app you can get on Android. So you can set up a notification in here. It's pretty simple. Say we wanted email from here. Click on email, and then you go through the configuration. You say it's from, you would put your server location. So you can put whatever you want in there. That will just what will come up in the from field. Set to, so that's quite important. So you want to send it to your email address. So as you can see underneath, it's intelligently already added my account that I have for my Plex account. So I can just click on that and it'll send it to my Gmail. You are going to have a SMTP server set up. You can do that through, if you watch one of our previous episodes, we showed you how to link that up with Google. There's actually a token that you can set with that too. So that might be worth looking into that. But personally, I have a private web host. I would just use my cPanel information from there and I'd set that up. So I'm not going to go into the configuration of this today. This is just getting this set up so you guys can use it and you can guys see what it's all about. So you've got triggers in here. So under configuration, once you've set up your SMTP settings, you can come into the triggers. Under triggers, you can say, well, if anyone plays something, it will notify you. If anyone stops anything, if they pause it, they resume it. If there's any errors in the playback, that's quite interesting, the error one, because then you can see whether the transcoding is working correctly or whether there's something amiss with some of the media files that you have. So sometimes when you download files from online, some of them might not be the correct format. Raspberry Pi has problem, dealing with certain file types. So you want to make sure that there's no errors happening there. So I would definitely recommend probably enabling that. Now, if you do enable any of these kind of settings, the play and stop, every time someone plays something or stops it, it's going to notify you. This can get very tedious and get very spammy, so you need to really be sparing with how you're setting this up. You don't want to be bugged out. But if you're interested to know when someone's watching something, when someone's paused something, then by all means, there's statistics that you can use and you can look at them. But personally, I don't see the point in knowing when someone's paused the video. It's up to you, it's your choice. So transcoding, decision change, watched, said when something's been watched, buffer warning, all sorts of stuff. It goes on and on. So when there's an update as well, another one I would definitely recommend ticking, even though if you guys have followed our previous episodes and you have the Watchtower installed, you might want to just get a notification as soon as a Tautulli update is available, which is handy as well. So yeah, and if there's any database corruptions, it happens from time to time, you might want to know about that. So these are all important ones to set. Especially if you're looking at the maintenance side of things rather than the monitoring side of things. There's two different sides. We've got conditions in here. You can set your own conditions in here and your own logics. So that's up to you. Notification text, you can play with this area as well. You can set custom formats for the texts. And test notification, this is to test your server to make sure that it's working. Because obviously I've set email under my configuration. So I'm not going to set it up as I said today. I'm just giving you a rundown of what it is. And you can add multiple agents as well. You don't just have to have email. You can set it up email, Facebook, blah, blah, blah. You can set up multiple. I mean, one really good one is Discord. If you guys use Discord, set that up. You can go to your Discord server. You can have a dedicated Discord server for your Plex server. And also, you can also let your people know who are accessing your server, like your family and your friends. You can let them know that Discord channel. You can make a little channel for them, and then if you do any updates, if you've got to shut down, don't do any restarts, you can let them know that you're going to be doing that. And also, if they've got any recommendations for content that they want, as long as you've got the correct licensing, of course, then you can provide that content for them and they can watch that. So that's also handy using Discord. Also, next week I will show you how to set up the Tautulli remote app. So this is the setting down here you can check. So we're going to go through from here. Help and info gives you a bit of information about your Docker container that you've got installed. The general, so you can set the formats that you want for the year, month and date formats, the hour formats. You can do some very, very fine-grained tuning for your configuration files and what data you want to display. You can also, here it says controlled by Docker container, you can set up to automatically update the container. And you've got the home page. You can see what you want to see statistically on that home page. You can untick anything that you're not interested in seeing. As I said, if you're just looking at certain files and folders, you didn't want to see certain things, you can very fine tune that again. The web interface itself, this can help you change the internal port. I'll just leave it the way it is so that it can communicate with apps and other things like that. As I said, because you're accessing this internally, it doesn't really matter about using HTTPS. The data that you use other than your credentials, if your network's safe, then it's not going to matter any shape or form. So if you come down the line, your Plex media server, this is all about the actual media server itself. We've shown you before, and we set up the log file in here. This notification and newsletters controls these two agents from here, and you can have a custom newsletter and things like that. Again, you guys are just using this, on the Raspberry Pi. It's not very powerful. You're not going to have a many user base. You're not going to have many people connecting to it. Maybe one or two connections. So, sort of a newsletter is not something that's really going to be something you're going to be looking at on this level. If you wanted to create something a bit bigger and share with more people, obviously to do it legally, you have to have the right licensing to do that. But what I'm saying is, if you wanted to do something like that, you need to have dedicated hardware. You're going to have to get, yourself a dedicated server and host it from there. And then from there, you can have, a graphics card that is going to be good enough to do transcoding and to share your content in and out. You're going to have a good network interface so that the bandwidth can come in and out of your machine, maybe even multiple Ethernet ports, so that you can share multiple different in and out feeds. But then that's obviously on a bigger scale. But you guys, we're just looking at using this for personal use and for family and friends. So, you're not going to really need to bother with newsletters and things like that. The notification agent we've been through. Third-party APIs. This is if you want to bring any APIs into Tautulli. That's completely up to you. There is a few here from the movie database links, things like that, to get a bit of metadata and stuff like that. So you can definitely use that. Images hosts, you can use some other image hosting services. To import and backups, so you can export your settings from here and keep them safe. So if you ever have to restore your Docker container or anything like that, if anything unfortunate happens where you get data loss, so you can restore from that database export, so you can import it here and etc. You can also import some logs as well, some different log types from here. It's up to you. And finally, we've been through that as well. So there you are. So that's the settings. So I think it's pretty clear to see how useful Tautulli is as a Plex media monitor, and how it just sits alongside Plex and just gives you sort of a helping hand to know what is going on with your server. So in next week's episode, I'm going to be doing an Android app special where I'm going to look at all the sort of apps that are going to integrate into our Raspberry Pi server and our services that we are using. I'm going to go through some useful apps and show you how to set them up with these services. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. If you got benefit out of it, if you can hit that subscribe and like button as well as a notification bell, you'll be notified of any uploads that we put up onto YouTube. In the description box below, we have all the resources from today's episode. If you guys click on that, we have a dedicated post. You can find the commands we have run. We also have links in the description box below as well as on our website to show compatible hardware with our Raspberry Pi series. These are all been tested and we know they work really well with the Raspberry Pi and everything that we are showing you guys how to do on our series. If you guys use any of them links, they are Amazon affiliate links and we get a small bit of commission back for each sale. It's at no extra cost to you guys and we thank you for using them. So all that leaves me to say now is thank you guys for watching and we'll see you in the next one.